I think all of you guys got my Survey Monkey link when I was trying to collect some data on sort of what you guys thought about what were some of the strengths and weaknesses of the current BLS Field Training Program. And thank you for those of you that responded. I think I had about 13 people respond. So what I did is went through all those results. I recorded all of the quotations and then tried to chunk them into what it was people were saying within their quotations, and then group them into common themes. And the document in the email that I sent out is a summary of those results of sort of what I found from all the quotations. If you want the really long document that includes all of the quotations, of course I've taken people's names off of them, but if you want to read all of exactly what people had to say, I'm happy to send that out to you too, but I thought you might appreciate the abbreviated version of it, which I'll be going over in this short presentation. And speaking of presentations, I tried doing this. I know this is not the conventional way to get information out to people or to communicate via a YouTube link, but I thought I would give this a try because I think it's important that we try to connect personally to you guys out in the field, and to everybody, and that us as an FTI group, we find ways to come together and to communicate. And I thought I'd give this a try. So I'm anxious to hear what you guys think about this. So please email me back any remarks about what you think as far as using this means of communicating for future stuff to all of you as a group. Let me move on from there, if I can. Oh, yeah, and also that said, please keep in mind this is not a formal presentation because I didn't have time to do a formal presentation. I just want to keep this quick and easy and simple. I want you to know first a little bit about me and how I got involved into the field training program, how Will pulled me into this, and just a little bit about me in general. I may be a little bit of an enigma as far as paramedics go, but all of you guys know that I worked in education for a long time before coming back to the field, and that's been 2 years now since I've been back in the field. And really what I've been busy doing that whole time was, well, those of you that have worked with me know this because you see me working on papers and projects for the past couple of years. But I've recently just completed my CSU master's program in adult education and workforce training. Part of that program towards the end is that we put together a web page, and I'm going to just show you a little bit of mine real quick. This is my web page. If you want to take time to go through my web page or my website, feel free to. But one of the things that I want you guys to understand just kind of where I'm coming from and what I believe in. One of the things is that I believe that because this industry places such high expectations on our employees, you know, we have a very high risk business, and we place really high expectations on all of you guys, all of us, as well as the new hires that we have coming in. I believe that there should be equally high expectations for the workplace training and continuing education programs that support our employees within this organization. So I believe this field training program is really important. I believe that we as an organization need to set these people up for success. This is the beginning of their career. And I also believe that we need to give our paramedics people that they can rely on, that they know what they're capable of, and they know, how they're going to function out there in the field as partners. So how do we do that? Well, part of what also I believe in my professional mission really is that we do create education that is employee-centered, fiscally responsible, and strategically planned using principles of adult education, instructional design, and program planning. And I'm not going to get too much into that. Like I said, if you guys want to spend more time, I love talking about that stuff, but I'm not going to do that here right now. So let me go back to what I was talking about. So what does that have to do with the field training program? I think that I believe that education is employee-centered. And why do I say that? I think that we have a group of employees who are highly motivated, who love to learn. I think people that come into this organization believe those same things. They love to learn. They love to learn more about medicine. They love to learn about EMS. So we need to tap into that. I believe in active learning, not passive learning. When we learn best, when you think back to those times that you really learned something that impacted your ability to do your job, it was probably not passive learning. It was probably you doing something. Either you were in a class that was engaging you because of the topic, it meant something to you, it was tapping into your brain where you were having a problem solve or critically think, you were reading something that captured your interest. And those things are what we call student-centered. So at this organization, I believe training should be employee-centered. It means that we find things that interest you guys, that you're engaged with, and we're creating opportunities for you to be active. And I believe learning should be strategically planned using the principles of instructional design. And that's all the systems and the structures that take place behind the scene to make meaningful education. And again, so how does that translate into, that's what I believe in. How does that translate to the BLS Field Training Program? I think the Field Training Program is the cornerstone of our agency's clinical education. It is the starting point. It is the starting block. I also believe it requires a process of instructional design because it's an extremely complicated program. It needs to have a system in place that defines goals, and those goals are going to then define the methods used to instruct. It's going to define the ways in which we assess whether or not new employees are actually learning what they need to learn. I also believe, though, while I'm, as Will knows, very much of a systems person, I love systems, I love structure. From my experience at this organization and at WCAT, I also have learned that the best systems are simplistic and they allow individual freedom within the boundaries. So I think, sometimes I'm guilty of this. I tend to get carried away with systems and structure because that's my tendency. But I think one of the worst pitfalls is to create an organization that is full of rules. Rules need to be there to create some structure to create guidance and to work within. But if it's too many rules, it creates complication. I think right now some of our field training program has got so much structure to it that it's confusing to people. So I think, my vision is to create a program that is clean and simple and easy to follow, but yet creates consistency. It allows field training instructors a structure to follow, yet gives them some freedom to express themselves as instructors too, and to do what you love to do, to teach. So that's kind of like a little bit of just understanding like where I'm coming from and what my vision is, and I hope you guys share some of that as well. And that's partly why I chose to put this presentation out on YouTube, because I think getting you guys to understand where I'm coming from and what I think and what I believe is important, and I hope that that will motivate and inspire some of you to join in helping with this, develop this program, because I can't do it on my own. So let's move on to the survey, the results of the survey. So if you haven't already, print the attached document that was in the email. And I'm going to just kind of go through just a real quick summary of some of the findings. Okay. So in the world of program planning, and this is kind of the educator side of me, one of the first things that you need to do in order to plan a program is to understand the context of the program. What does that mean? That means understanding, in this case, we're trying to improve a program that already exists instead of creating a new one. So understanding what the problems are in the current program. Why are we doing this? What is it that we're trying to make better or trying to fix? And I have some of my personal ideas of what needs to be fixed, but that's not going to cut it. I need to understand what you guys are the ones, you're out there every day training people, this program. So for me, a starting point was really to tap into what you guys perceived as being the real problems. And these were some of the highlights I found. I think, like I said, there was about 13 people that responded. And when I report those numbers are the number of times this particular thing was cited as a weakness. Sometimes people, and the numbers got a little skewed because sometimes people would actually take two things that they thought were a weakness and join it all into one statement when there was really two pieces to it. So Number one, the biggest problem, not a surprise, lack of consistency. And Will mentioned that. He touched upon that in the last field training FTI meeting. So this one shouldn't be a big surprise. But what I really was trying to do too, though, is that when I was seeing those results of consistency, it wasn't in just saying the program was inconsistent. It was looking at why, like what were the areas? Why are we saying that it's inconsistent? And I was finding that one of the main ones was content. So the FTIs, when they had an objective that they're talking about, the way you guys were answering it was different. Another important one was understanding the sign-offs. So sometimes people are not signing off when they maybe talked about an objective. And I don't know why, we haven't really answered why they weren't signing them off. Maybe the person didn't actually meet the objective, so they didn't sign it off. Anyway, there's miscommunication and confusion around when and why people are initialing the objectives for sign-offs. And then there's also some inconsistency in the teaching methods used by the FTIs. Some people like to go hands-on. Some people just talk about the objective and then they sign it off. So that's creating kind of a mixed bag there as well. Number two, the program is too short for the objectives. 7 times that was reported. So either the program needs to get longer or we need to slim it down on our objectives. So it needs to be addressed. Otherwise, it will continue to be a problem. Number 3, management is signing them off too early. 4 times that was reported. And that, again, I think we've talked about that, that within the instructional design, process and program planning, that will be addressed as well. This one was a good one. Need for electronic forms. I had 4 times people reported that they wanted something either on Ninth Brain or some way of communicating how people were doing, and that you could just kind of like log on to some site either through Ninth Brain and you could read that student's or that new hire's past forms on feedback. So it kind of gives you a little bit more idea of how they were doing. That's a fantastic idea. So something that we should incorporate. FTI group is not clearly identified. Yes, I agree. It's not clearly identified, something that needs to be addressed. FTI burnout caused by too much repetition. I feel your pain. I've gone through the 10 straight hours of sitting somebody at the kitchen table and talking their ear off. This is not, especially for somebody from an education background like me, this is painful for me to do because lecture is one of the least effective means of teaching. And we sit and we talk their ear off. But it's the only way to get through all the objectives. So that is a problem in the program. It needs to be addressed. New hires are, oops, I was a misprint. New hires are inadequately prepared to be on a call prior to first field ride. And so that's I think a good one, and I think there's a fairly easy fix to that, which I'll talk about in a little bit. It's fixable. Lack of oversight from the training group, 2 reported there. Again, I think that is something that can be fixed as well. So I didn't list the rest of them. The list goes on. I only put the ones where at least it was reported at least 2 times. Keep in mind that only 13 respondents were included on this survey. So, and then there's also some positive stuff too that I'm not going to get into, but it's all on that document as well. And don't worry, I'm not saying that stuff is not important. It definitely is. And those are the things that we want to keep in mind as we develop the program or improve the program to keep in place. Those are the things that they're cool, they're working. Let's not let those go by the wayside. Okay. So I think this is like the last slide, so hang with me for a minute longer. What is it that we hope to achieve by doing this program? Oh, let me back up. Okay, so after you understand context of the program, which I think we have a pretty good handle on, I feel like we know what's working, what's not. And now we know I can put my hands around something of what we need to fix, what's wrong, what's broken. The next step would be to define the program goals. Because when I look at things like inconsistencies, people kind of all over the place. inconsistencies in where FTIs pick up in the program and, what you choose to teach that day. To me, that means the program lacks some structure. There's not a real clear pathway that you guys are supposed to take when you get that new hire that walks in the door as to what you're supposed to do that day. The program lacks structure. In order to create structure, we kind of need to go back to the beginning. We need to readdress what are our goals. And when we look at goals at a program level, you start out by asking this question. What is it that we hope to achieve by doing this program? And I think we kind of answered that, unless somebody else has some other idea. But we talked about this like 2 years ago when we all met over at CMC in that classroom, and Dennis Edgerly came, and I asked everybody, we kind of fleshed this out. What is it that we hope to achieve by doing this program? Number 1, we want safe drivers. Number 2, we want competent BLS assistants. And number 3, while this sometimes is like the icing on the cake, I think it's still important. We want BLS partners that can run calls. And we want that's in a list of priority, 1, 2, and 3. So we kind of have that answered. The next step, though, to look at beyond program goals, to look more specifically at those things, we have to ask the question then, what is it that we want them to be able to do? So, and not what do we want them to know? So looking at safe drivers, you ask the question, well, if we want them to be safe drivers, what does that look like? What are they going to be doing? And that's how you generate goals. So put aside all the other stuff, the checklists and everything that we have, and you just simply ask those questions and picture competent BLS assistant. What does that look like? If you want a competent partner, EMT partner, what is it that you want them to be able to do? What does that mean to you? I've gotten a start on kind of rewriting goals. It's a long list. I've got probably over 100 items on there, and those are goals, not objectives. So I have some start to that. But the list is long. It's over 100 items. And I think the next step is to take those goals, and I've started this as well, is to chunk them into modules. I know that's such a corny word, I don't know why, but modules. But we need to put them in modules because you have to create something that's manageable. So when you get that new person in, you're looking at this steps of modules. It's more mentally manageable, I think, for the FTIs as well as the new hires to feel like they're completing this information in one module. They've done an assessment to know that to show that they've achieved those goals, and now they're going to move to the next one. And those modules are also nice because they can be rearranged. You can simply rearrange the order if you want. I mean, initially, I think we would try to create some sort of order that made them prepared to start their field ride. So we'd say, well, they need to complete these modules before they show up for their field ride. Each module can have its own method of assessment, which it needs to have. That's that accountability piece that we're missing right now. Right now, we sort of like get everybody through all these checkoffs, and then we send them to the clinical group who hasn't been with them in the field, and then they're supposed to somehow sign them off using what I would say is a summative assessment, which we don't really have a formal summative assessment. We don't have a formative assessment or summative assessment yet, but there would be assessments within each of those modules as well. And objectives within the modules can be achieved through a variety of methods, and that doesn't mean lecture. That means depending on what the objective is, they may we're trying to create that active learning piece where it's not going to be you sitting at the kitchen table talking their ear off. It's going to be probably them either reading or watching something online, and then your job is to get them out doing it, and then check off whether or not they can actually do it. But your job is to get them out doing it, to witness and see that they can achieve these things. That's the job, what I believe to be is the job of the FTI. So next steps, where are we at with all, or where am I at with all this stuff? I want to assemble an FTI work group. People, I'm thinking of 4 to 5 people, and I I think you've gotten through listening to this lecture, this podcast or whatever, YouTube video, sorry. You've gotten a little bit of a flavor of what I'm all about, how I'm approaching this project. If you're interested in field training, if you're interested in being involved in this process, learning more about what instructional design is, one of my favorite topics, then you should get into this group. This is kind of what it's going to look like. One of the first things this group needs to do is to sit down and look at that list of goals that I mentioned and create revisions. I want you guys to read through this list. I want you to say, no, this stuff is not important. I don't think we need this. They don't need to be able to do this. Or instead, you might say, you know what? I want my partner to be able to do this, this, and this, and it's not on your list. So we need to look at that list and revise it. Once it's all revised and you have a chance to kind of, like right now, I've sort of chunked it into modules, but that was just my attempt. I want the group as a whole to look at those modules, rearrange things, put the modules in an order, and then say, well, these ones are going to come before field rides. These can be done after field rides. These ones need to be done during field rides. We're going to look at things like revisiting the levels, BLS, BLSI, BLSA. That's going to be done within this group as well. And then once that's all in place, that's kind of skeleton structure, we're going to start building the modules. And that's when I'll need this group's help to take on small projects while you're on shift. It might be like, you might be assigned, I need you to write down the procedure for putting on the Lucas. And your job is going to be to make sure that we have it completely, written out in the correct way. Or it might be to write out something about filling out the signature form on the PCR for sections 1, 2, and 3. What's the correct way of doing that? Creating some example cases for filling out that form correctly. So that's just kind of an example of what building modules means. So if you're interested in being a part of this group, I would really appreciate it. I'm kind of envisioning that we would maybe meet once a month and talk about kind of where everybody's at, projects. You're going to get little tasks and things to do on duty, and then we would meet again kind of on a regular basis. So as far as the entire FTI group, we'll give you, depending on where the project goes, I can't really predict too much. I'll try to kind of give you occasional updates as to the progress, and if we have stuff that we want input from the entire FTI group, we'll put that out as well. So that's it. And also let me know what you think of YouTube videos and communicating via this method. So let's see, I think that's it. Thanks. Enjoy some off-season R&R, because I know I am a little bit. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.